So hello, good morning and welcome to the EduphoreIAS, the live Hindu class and this live Hindu analysis. Okay, so we'll begin first as usual with yesterday's questions, that is 12th of September, and then we'll be starting our Hindu analysis. So quickly let us have a look at the questions from yesterday's discussion. The first is the state of food security and nutrition in the world report is published by. Remember, whenever you get such kind of reports where we are talking about the food security or nutrition or agriculture, in most of the time at most of the time you find that somewhat the answer would be Food and Agriculture Organization, that is United Nations specialized agency, fine, taking care of the food and agriculture. Okay, so the answer is simple one. Second, ensuring that Indians have permanent access to a healthy diet is the most important task of economic policy today. You need to comment. So this question is based on the editorial, the lead editorial that we discussed on the editorial page. That article actually discussed yesterday, and that was written by Palpure Balakrishnanji, that is the Reading India of Food Insecurity. So again, since the question is of 15 marks, so of course, following the same IBC, structure of answering, that is intro, body and conclusion. So intro in this case can be 4 to 5 lines max, fine, considering the nature of. The variation is for 10 marker, you need to have maximum of 3 lines, and for 15 marker, you can maximum go to 4 to 5 lines. So how we can build up on the introduction? First of all, so you can say that India, the way he begins his article, so of course you can write the same, like for example, India may be the fastest growing large economy of the world today, but it is also facing accelerating food price inflation, right? This is one case. And you can further say that somewhat an implication of this continuing high food price inflation is that section of population could be facing hardships in consuming food of adequate nutrition value, and therefore somewhat it puts question mark on food security or the nutrition security of the population, the masses. Therefore, next we need to build up on the or write the body part of the answer. In body part, you can directly or even you can mention this SNOFI, that is State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World Report of FAO, either in the introduction part or in the conclusion part. You can anywhere, but you should quote this report, fine. So apart from this, you can also, quote certain stats as well from this article itself, like one of the important stats that he gave yesterday and in his mentioned in his article, and that was, for example, according to FAO, an estimated 75% of the population cannot afford a healthy diet in India, fine. So this is according to FAO, this is State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World Report. Now, why this finding is plausible? So of course, here again, one of the reports that you can quote is of course the National Family Health Survey, the latest one of 2019 and 2021, that is NFHS, the 5th round of this survey, fine, NFHS 5. Apart from this, now you can also say that ensuring that Indians have access to a healthy diet is the most important task of economic policy today, and macroeconomic policy relied upon to control inflation has proved to be you need not to mention the same word, that is use the same word useless, but rather you can say that not that much effective. And of course you can here also quote the RBI policy measures and all, that somewhat the focus was on controlling the demand, but we also need to focus on the supply side, of course, and we need to boost the production and yield as well in order to meet the requirements, cost demand. And apart from that, you need to also in a one point mention the significance of the Green Revolution that we discussed began in the most important significance of this Green Revolution of the 1960s, early 1960s, was that somewhat it made us a self-sufficient in food production, fine, especially in this case of food, fine. So we became self-sufficient. Self-sufficiency is the ultimate most important this contribution of Green Revolution. And now another kind of agricultural revolution or Green Revolution 2 we need at this stage in order to ensure that our population gets the adequate has this adequate food security alongside the nutrition security, fine. So this is how you need to mention. Apart from that, as far as policy is concerned, you can also quote the procurement prices, cash transfers that we discussed at a public distribution system, and priority lending, priority sectors lending for the agriculture sector especially. So these 4-5 things you can mention in your body part. Apart from that, you can also mention that though in the next point that agricultural yield is lower in India than in East Asia, and therefore attention is needed to extend the irrigation up to the 100% of the net zone area. Fine. So this would be next would be like initiatives to work upon. I mean, this could be where your either the way forward, or you can also continue the same with the body part as well. But if you if I think body part has already been we have discussed the, I have given the sufficient number of points. So now it's better that initiatives to work upon you mentioned is, instead of conclusion, here you can write down as, instead of conclusion you can write down that as way forward. That what could be the forward, way forward from here, or what could be the solutions. So number one, initiatives that he has mentioned in our article, you can also use the same and quote the same point wise. Fine. So expanding on each of these proposals would be in order, like the 4 things that we discussed: procurement price, this PDS system, then apart from that, this cash transfers, and of course the public sector, this private sector lending. Apart from that, of course, agricultural yield, to raise the agricultural yield. So these are the points where actually and also we need to end the restrictions on leasing of land, quickening of agricultural research and development, as we discussed already, required at this stage, and of course the reinstitution of extension services as well, where earlier we used to have the roles of at the village level, panchayat level, like gram sevak and all used to play important role in the agriculture. So we need to somewhat decentralize the system as well, and this is how, I mean, these are the 4-5 points you should quote as the way forward. Fine. So, and of course, if you want to conclude, you can say that it was the green revolution that made the first dent on poverty in India. So the poor did benefit from this strategy. Similarly, now, in order to ensure that all Indians have permanent access to a healthy diet, no approach consistent with ecological security must be off the table. That we need to ensure ecological or environmental security alongside the food security or nutritional security. Fine. So this is how you can ultimately conclude after giving the way forward. Fine. Number of points. So this would be the complete structure of your answer. Fine. Let us now discuss the today's newspaper itself, and then we will see the questions based on today's discussions. Okay. So today is 13th of September, and here we have the front page of the Hindu, and that is again we see the occurrence of this Nipah virus. Nipah virus again breaks out in Kerala and claims 2 lives. Fine. तो निपा वायरस है क्या? सबसे पहले तो ये हमारे लिए समझने की जरूरत है. तो निपा वायरस, एक चीज याद रखना कि निपा वायरस इज अ जूनोटिक वायरस. जूनोटिक वायरस कौन से होते हैं? जूनोटिक जो कि एनिमल से इंसानों में फैलते हैं. ठीक है. तो transmitted or let us say spreaded those viruses which are spread from animals to humans. ठीक है. तो like monkey में हमने देखा था, like pig में के थ्रू भी हो सकता है. ठीक है. So yeah, bats are again the vectors, actually the media through which this can be transmitted to the humans. Fine. So zoonotic viruses, these are zoonotic viruses first, and second, till now we have no vaccine available for this virus. Fine. So this is the news again in Kerala. Even last year, I think 2 years back, we had this similar case in Kerala especially, and there we see that they spread from the bat, चमगादड़ जिसको आप बोलते हो, तो bat से. So इस चीज से, for example, I mentioned we have 2 more cases of the virus transmitted from animals such as bats or pigs to humans, and from human to human have been confirmed. ठीक है. So not just zoonotic तो है ही है, साथ में ये भी है कि इंसानों से इंसानों में भी फैल सकता है. ठीक है. Not just from animals to humans. तो इस पॉइंट को भी ध्यान रखने की जरूरत है. फाइन. बाकी इस पे सेंट्रल टीम जो है, ऑलरेडी सेंटर ने एक्सपर्ट की एक टीम को भेज दिया है केरला में, एंड विल कीप ट्रैक ऑन दिस कि हाउ द थिंग्स आर गोइंग टू अनफोल्ड in the upcoming days. Okay, apart from this, we have this retail inflation is easing somewhat, but food prices still bite the bullet. So somewhat you see that food prices still bite, because somewhat this is in the range of 10%, though CPI or retail inflation has eased to the level of 6.83% from earlier you see 7.44% in July. fine. So India's retail inflation decelerated to 6.83% in August from this much in July, but remember still the 6.83% is greater than the RBI upper band of 6% under a what इन्फ्लेशन टारगेटिंग रेजिम जो आरबीआई की है उसके अकॉर्डिंग 4% की इन्फ्लेशन होनी चाहिए +-2। तो प्लस अगर 2 करें तो मैक्सिमम जो रेंज है दैट इज 6% से ज्यादा ना हो, बट यहाँ पे क्या है कि 6.83% है। सो जो फ्लेक्सिबल इन्फ्लेशन टारगेटिंग रेजिम है जो आरबीआई की, उसके हिसाब से अगर हम देखें तो अभी भी 0.83% जो है इन्फ्लेशन हमारे देश में वो अपर बैंड ऑफ जो ये रेंज है 6% उससे ज्यादा है। ठीक है, तो अभी भी हमें इस पे काम करने की जरूरत है। फाइन, अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस 2300 डेड, many मिसिंग एज फ्लैश फ्लड हिट्स लीबिया सिटी। तो लीबिया में पहले हमने देखा कि अर्थक्वेक की वजह से मोरक्को में, देन लीबिया में अराउंड 2000 प्लस पीपल एक्चुअली डाइंग आउट ऑफ दिस। So next, okay, we'll apply lessons learned during G20 summit said by SS Yadav. He is the DGP, Commissioner of Police Traffic is in fact Delhi. Fine, so of course this is a good thing. Okay, apart from this city page, now we have a states page. So states page पे देख सकते हो नागालैंड असेंबली 6 एग्जामिशन फ्रॉम यूसीसी एम्बिट। ठीक है, तो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट जो है इसने कहा है कि नागा पीपल आर ऑफ द व्यू दैट इट विल पोज अ थ्रेट टू कस्टमरी लॉज, क्योंकि नागा ट्राइबल ग्रुप्स बेसिकली, सो ट्राइबल्स की अपनी लैंग्वेज, स्क्रिप्ट एंड कल्चर एवरीथिंग होती है, डिस्टिंक्ट होती है। सो ऑफ कोर्स सो रेस्ट ऑफ इंडिया से डिस्टिंक्ट हो सकती है। ठीक है, तो ज़रूरी है कि यूसीसी को जब लाया जाए तो उस टाइम पे ध्यान रखा जाए कि उनकी जो कस्टमरी राइट्स होते हैं उन पे ज़्यादा इम्पैक्ट ना हो, अदरवाइज दे विल सीक अ न्यू course, of course they will seek exemptions. Okay, apart from this politics here only, not that important. So again the states page, Maratha reservation, Maratha quota demand and all. So Kaveri panel directs Karnataka to continue release of 5000 cusecs of water. Already we have seen this. ठीक है, तो तमिलनाडु एंड कर्नाटका के बीच में इशू चल रहा था इससे रिलेटेड कि रिलीज करो वाटर। Okay, apart from this, not that important. I mean, only here you have politics. Okay. So workers suffer penury with delay in Manrega wages. So of course Manrega work Muzaffarpur एक यहाँ पे report है, Muzaffarpur hopefully in Bihar, of course scheme wages in Bihar Muzaffarpur have led to severe financial stress. कि टाइमली जो है इनको पेमेंट जो है वो मनरेगा के अंडर वेजेस जो है नहीं मिल पा रही, डिलेज इन द डिस्बर्समेंट ऑफ मनरेगा, महात्मा गांधी नेशनल रूरल एम्प्लॉयमेंट गारंटी एक्ट के अंडर जो प्रोविजन है फॉर 100 डेज ऑफ वर्क वर्क, एंड ऑफ कोर्स इन एब्सेंस ऑफ गारंटीड वर्क अलाउंसेस एज वेल इनको मिलते हैं। तो जो भी डिस्बर्समेंट रिलेटेड है सम व्हाट वर्कर्स को नहीं मिल पा रही है, तो इससे वजह से काफ़ी ऑफ कोर्स दिक्कतें हो सकती हैं इनको। Okay, apart from this, some other, so not that important. So let us quickly go to the editorial page. Again, you see this is states page, but I think court rejects Naidu's, of course, politics going on only. Not that important. Again, states only. Again, states. Not that important. मणिपुर में अभी भी वायलेंस चली रही है, वहाँ पे अभी ख़त्म होने का कुछ खास क्रूड हमें सोल्यूशन दिख नहीं रहा। सो ड्रॉप द बैड आइडिया ऑफ साइमल्टेनियस इलेक्शन। साइमल्टेनियस इलेक्शंस में हम ऑलरेडी काफ़ी बात कर चुके हैं इस पर। ठीक है, कल परसों भी हमने एक आर्टिकल छोड़ा था, नहीं डिस्कस किया था, बट दैट वाज पॉलिटिकल, उसमें ज़्यादा मसाला था. सो ऑफ कोर्स somewhat drop the bad idea of simultaneous elections, written by Gautam Bhatia, is a Delhi based lawyer, fine, and he writes on constitutional issues and all. So why to drop this bad idea of simultaneous elections? So इसमें से कुछ points हैं जो हमारे लिए relevant हैं from exam point of view as well, because he had covered important aspects of federalism and democracy, fine. So we'll quickly have a look at it, because not to go again into what is this and what all this is. So of course, we know the panel has been formed by the Honorable of course, the Government of India, under the chairmanship of Honorable former President of India, that is Ramnath Kovind ji, to determine how this one nation, one election might be implemented and what manner of constitutional change might be required for the same. Fine. So one nation, one election. रामनाथ कोविंद जी की जो पैनल है वो, एंड द प्राइमरी नाउ, इससे पहले कि हम, क्योंकि देखो यहाँ पे आर्टिकल टाइटल जो है दैट इज ड्रॉप द बैड आइडिया ऑफ साइमल्टेनियस इलेक्शंस. इट मींस व्हाट, दैट ऑथर और राइटर इज गोइंग टू डिस्कस मोर ऑफ द the disadvantages or the negative points related to this, that why we should drop the bad idea of simultaneous elections. But first of all, let us quickly have a look at the good side as well. So the primary arguments in favor of simultaneous elections are twofold. First is it will decrease the cost of conducting elections, and second is that it will free up political parties from being in permanent campaign mode and allow them to focus on governance for a 5-year period. So these are the two primary arguments related to this one. So point and counterpoint. So of course these both points can be counteracted as well. For example, critics ये कहते हैं कि they have pointed out that when you crunch the numbers, the actual financial savings are relatively minuscule. Furthermore, it is a relatively recent pathology of the Indian political system that central government ministers and politicians spend a significant amount of time campaigning in state elections. So of course, अगर खर्चे तो देखोगे या टाइम जो है गवर्नेंस इश्यूज हैं कि यहाँ वो लोग ज़्यादा अगर टाइम इवन की लेट अस से Prime Minister being of course the leader of his party as well, campaigning somewhere in the states elections. So of course governance जो सेंट्रल लेवल गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया के लेवल पे कहीं ना कहीं वो टाइम जो है वो गवर्नेंस के लेवल पे सेक्रीफाइस हो रहा है. फाइन, खर्चे भी हैं स्टेट विजिट के. So if the concern therefore is that frequent state elections hamper governance and the business of parliament, then simultaneous elections seem a needlessly complicated answer when a simple one is available, that the state election should be primarily fought by state party units while national politicians can get on with the task of governance. Fine. So this is another angle कि जो state elections हैं उस पे state जो units हैं respective party के उनको fight करने दिया जाए, जो central ministers हैं जो prime minister हैं वो central level पे governance पे ध्यान. ठीक है. The reality, however, is that the increasingly centralized and presidential character of Indian election campaigns means that this is unlikely to be a reality in the near future. So critics ये भी कहते हैं कि कहीं ना कहीं इंडिया में जो elections हैं वो presidential kind of elections हो गए जैसे यूएस में होते हैं, बजाय कि एक representative democracy kind of things. Apart from this, there are certain points or the grounds where this the critics actually criticizes this one nation one election this proposal. So critics' first point is the logistical nightmare of conducting simultaneous elections in a country of a little over 1.4 billion people, in context where even state elections need to take place in multiple phases. So this is the first point. Negative point is of course the logistical issue or the challenges related to the logistics. The second is of course, and graver one, is the incompatibility of rigid election timetable with the some of the fundamentals of parliamentary democracy. For example, at the time of independence, central and state elections were conducted simultaneously, but this arrangement got broke down towards the end of 1960s, precisely in 1967, because of the use of Article 356, that is President Rule of the Constitution, which authorizes the Union to suspend state governments in a narrowly defined manner. Fine. So this is graver concern, that is related to the President Rule. Fine. Apart from this, the essence of parliamentary democracy is that at all times the government must enjoy the confidence of the House, failing which it must step down and go back to the people for a fresh mandate. So this is of course the essence of parliamentary or representative democracy. Fine. जब भी लगे कि कॉन्फिडेंस ऑफ द हाउस जो है वो करंट जो गवर्नमेंट है रूलिंग पार्टी और लूज कर चुकी है तो उसको फ्रेश इलेक्शन करानी चाहिए. ठीक है, लोगों के बीच आके. सो देयरफॉर दीज आर द issues. But to this, two solutions have been proposed as well. Fine. both of which tend to make the problem worse. The first is that president's rule will be imposed in the state until the 5-year period is over. And needless to say, this will starkly undermine both federalism and democracy. The second solution that has been proposed is that elections will be held in that state, but the term of the new assembly will only be until the next cycle. कि सपोज 5 साल से पहले किसी इलेक्शन किसी स्टेट में सरकार गिर जाती है, लेट अस से, या जो करंट गवर्निंग रूलिंग पार्टी है वो कॉन्फिडेंस लूज कर जाती है, सो इस वजह से री इलेक्शन कराने पड़ेंगे. तो सपोज 5 साल नहीं चली सरकार, तीसरे साल में ही अगर गिर गई सरकार, ठीक है, तो अब जो नेक्स्ट इलेक्शन री इलेक्शन होगा वो कितने टाइम के लिए होगा? सिर्फ 2 ईयर्स के लिए. सो दैट कि अगेन जो साइकिल ऑफ साइमल्टेनियस इलेक्शन है ऑफ ऑल द स्टेट एंड सेंटर वो कहीं ना कहीं यूनिफॉर्म रहे. ठीक है, सो वो जो रिमेनिंग टाइम पीरियड है सिर्फ उतने के लिए ही री इलेक्शंस हो. He is saying not only does this undercut both the justifications for simultaneous elections, that is cost and avoidance of continuous campaign, because दोबारा से अगर कराओगे किसी भी तो खर्चा भी बढ़ेगा एंड साथ में कैंपेनिंग भी करनी पड़ेगी लीडर्स को. तो ऑफ कोर्स सीधी सी बात है कि जो हमने एडवांटेजेस देखी हो यहाँ पे खत्म होती हुई नजर आ रही है. But rather leads to perverse incentives. For example, how much governance will a state government be able to do if elections are scheduled in a year? बिल्कुल ठीक बात है. The possibility of more horse trading. Horse trading क्या होता है? जोड़ तोड़ गठबंधन की सरकार, ठीक है, बट गठबंधन भी डिफरेंट तरीके की होती हैं. The upshot of this is that there will be a strong push towards avoiding the fall of government. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है कि 5 साल हर हाल में पूरा की जाए अपना टेन्योर, even when it has lost the confidence of the house in the ordinary course of thing. तो ये कैसे हो सकता है कि सपोज लो कोई पार्टी है उसकी कॉन्फिडेंस जो है वो इन द हाउस नहीं रही है, फिर भी वो सरकार उसकी मजबूरी हो सकती है कि 5 साल तक चलाई जाए. इस केस में क्या हो सकता है कि ऑफ कोर्स खरीद फरोख्त देखने को मिल सकती है, हॉर्स ट्रेडिंग देखने को मिल सकती है कि दूसरी पार्टी के एमएलए या एमपी जो है उनको तोड़ा जाए सो दैट कि अपनी सरकार जो है 5 साल तक चल सके. ठीक है, सो दिस कुड बी वन ऑफ द इश्यूज अगेन. सो देयर इज ऑलमोस्ट इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज्ड रेमेडी फॉर दिस डिफेक्शंस. एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ भी है हमारे पास 1985 10th शेड्यूल, फाइन, और हॉर्स ट्रेडिंग, फाइन, कि डिफेक्ट करके एक पार्टी वाले दूसरी पार्टी में शामिल हो जाएं जो रूलिंग क्लास पार्टी है, एंड ऑफ कोर्स सरकार 5 साल अपने टेन्योर जो है कंप्लीट करे. तो ऑफ कोर्स इट कुड बी इन द पॉसिबिलिटी ऑफ मोर डिफेक्शंस एंड मोर हॉर्स ट्रेडिंग. फाइन, दिस इज अनदर आर्गुमेंट. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस, while these intractable issues speak to the implementation of simultaneous elections itself, at a deeper level there are two principled and interrelated arguments against the idea of simultaneous elections, and that two principles are federalism and democracy. That how these two things can get impacted with the implementation of this idea of one nation, one election. So first of all, the federalism. So first is, over the years it has increasingly come to be accepted that Indian federalism is not simply a matter of administrative convenience, but also a matter of principle that recognizes the legitimacy of linguistic, cultural, ethnic and other forms of diversity, you can say, because federalism is not just Indian federalism is not just based on or it cannot be accepted that this is just based on the administrative convenience, but also we have diversity in the country based on linguistic and other things, for example mentioned here, cultural, ethnic and other forms of collective aspirations through the grant of a statehood. एक बात है, in this context there is of course Indian democracy at the central level, but also at the level of each state. Democracy takes its own set of claims, demands and aspirations. Simultaneous elections risk a blurring of these distinct forums and arenas of democracy. ये जो हम देख रहे हैं चीजें कि जो ये सब essence of democracy जो है, that is of course essence of democracy that lies in of course all this diversity, somewhat this can be blurred, fine, and with the risk that state level issues will be subsumed into the national level. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है कि नेशनलिज्म या नेशनल इश्यूज रेज कर के बेसिस पे हो सकता है. अब सिमिलरली सपोज मान के चलो कि एक दिन अगर एक स्टेट में इलेक्शन स्टेट्स में भी हो और सेंटर में भी हो, तो ऑफ कोर्स जो सेंटर में लगता है कि पार्टी जीतेगी उसको हो सकता है कि स्टेट्स में नहीं जीतने की पोजीशन में थी फिर भी जीत जाए, क्या पता, क्योंकि हो सकता है कि लीडर के नाम पे वोट पड़ जाए या उन मुद्दों के ऊपर वोट पड़े जो सेंट्रली नेशन के लेवल पे इंपॉर्टेंट है, बट हो सकता है कि उस स्टेट के लिए इंपॉर्टेंट ना हो. ठीक है, सो ऑफ कोर्स वहां पे इन्फ्लुएंस हमें देखने को मिल सकती है. कीपिंग एब्सोल्यूट पावर इन चेक. So a related point is that in our constitutional scheme, the federal structure is an important check upon the concentration of power. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है. Buttressed by the existence of राज्य सभा at the central level. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है कि राज्य सभा को हम काउंसिल ऑफ स्टेट्स भी बोलते हैं, बिकॉज राज्य सभा इज देयर टू टेक केयर ऑफ द द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ दिस states in the parliament. ठीक है, so that's why Rajya Sabha acts as a check upon the concentration of power of the central government. So the federal structure in turn is sustained by plurality of democratic contest and a plurality of political outfits at the state level. ठीक बात है. Plurality of political outfits means we have number of political parties, fine, and of course we have therefore we have plural democratic contest as well, number of parties contesting the elections, right? Simultaneous elections for the reasons pointed out above risk undermining that plurality and risk precisely the kind of concentration of power that federalism is meant to be bulwark against. ठीक है, so simultaneous elections कहीं ना कहीं author के according क्या है कि concentration of power को बढ़ावा दे सकती है, साथ में जो concentration of power and the federalism जो है that is meant to be a bulwark against, federalism जो है that is to which checks the actually concentration of power at the central level. This might actually we see somewhat the simultaneous elections risk undermining this thing of federalism. Second is on democracy. So despite the ringing words with which the preamble of the constitution begins, that is the people, this preamble starts with we the people of India, fine, so hereby of course बाकी आपको पता ही है सारा. So we the people of India means our constitution, our preamble begins with this word people, but this people have very little space in the constitution, especially when it comes to exercising control over their representatives. For example, हम अपने लेवल पे देख सकते हैं कि एक बार इलेक्शन देते हैं 5 साल के लिए, फिर हमारे रिप्रेजेंटेटिव जो है वो फर्स्ट जाके पार्लियामेंट में हमें रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं. ठीक है, so therefore unlike many other constitutions where public participation in lawmaking is guaranteed right along with other rights such as right to recall, कि अगर लगता है कि 5 साल के लिए हमें जिसको चूज इलेक्ट किया था वो गायब ही हो गए, दिख ही नहीं रहे, तो आप राइट टू रिकॉल भी एक्सरसाइज कर सकते हो कि नहीं भाई अब रिकॉल करके किसी और को चुनते हैं. ठीक है, बट ऐसी कोई प्रावधान हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में सच नहीं है. So in the constitution, elections are the only form of public participation in the public sphere in India. There is a different conversation to be had about why this is not enough, but given this framework, relatively regular and frequent elections allow for more extended public participation and debate. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है कि एटलीस्ट वोट लेने के लिए एक बारी दर्शन तो कर लेते हो आप अपने रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स के, नहीं कि चलो 5 साल बाद ना सही, अगर दोबारा से इलेक्शंस हो रहे हैं 3 साल के अंदर, तो 3 साल में फिर से दोबारा से आपसे मिलते हैं. ठीक बात है. ओके, so simultaneous elections should shrink this scope substantially because 5 साल के बाद ही अब दर्शन होंगे without any countervailing changes to deepen it in other domains. Therefore, it is clear that the administrative benefits from simultaneous elections are overstated at best and non-existent at worst. ठीक है, कि जो हमें ये लगता है कि एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव कन्वीनियंस होगी साइमल्टेनियस इलेक्शंस कराने से, that has been overstated or exaggerated at the best and non-existent at worst according to him. So however, the cost both in implementation and in the concept itself are significant and create non-trivial risk when it comes to protecting and preserving the federal and democratic design of the constitution. These therefore are good reasons why the idea is a bad one and ought not to be acted upon. कि already idea simultaneous elections की one nation one election की bad one है, we need not to act upon further upon this. Fine, कि simultaneous elections नहीं करानी चाहिए. Fine. Apart from this article is not that important. This is about the rogue channel or especially the Harami Nala. Harami Nala is a natural water body which lies in the region of course this India-Pakistan national border in Gujarat, Sar Creek area of Kutch, Gujarat. Fine, यहाँ पे हमारे होम मिनिस्टर ने विजिट किया था, तो बस उससे रिलेटेड मेंशन है, थोड़ी काफ़ी ज़्यादा डिटेलिंग मेंशन है. ठीक है, सो इसलिए इतनी ज़्यादा हमारे लिए इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ें नहीं है. बट हरामी नाला की अगर बात करें तो इट्स एक्सट्रीमली रिच इन फिशिंग स्पेशली प्रॉन्स. Moreover, the formidable marshy terrain through which it runs makes it impossible to approach or patrol on foot even during low tide. Treacherous tides, morass is a marshy land, and mirages are matched by scorching temperature, especially from the Indian side. These are the issues. Patrolling में ये issues हैं. But in contrast, the Harami Nala has always been more accessible to from the other side, that is Pakistani side. Pakistani fishing boats try and make their way up the many small creeks to surreptitiously enter the Harami Nala on the Indian side, drawn by the plentiful catch and all, of course fishing and all, and they try to infiltrate in India as well through this Harami Nala channel, which is located in the Sar Creek, of course you can see area of Kutch, Gujarat. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे विजिट किया इन्होंने, कहा कि कुछ चीज़ें स्टेप्स हम लेंगे, एंड दिस वाज द फर्स्ट एवर विजिट यू कैन से बाय any home minister. Fine. The BSF personnel in this sector, including the commandos, called commandos को यहाँ पे बोला जाता है Creek crocodiles, and the forces water wing have benefited from focused guidance and leadership at the highest political level from the home minister. Fine. So all of these prime minister and of course the visit of this visit by of course our home minister as well. So this is just आपको पता होना चाहिए कि हरामी नाला है कहाँ पे, किस एरिया में है. दिस इज अगेन RK साहब ने लिखा है अगेन द भारतीय न्याय संहिता नीड्स अ रीलुक. काफ़ी बार हम इसको डिस्कस कर चुके हैं, सो लेट अस नॉट अगेन गोइंग टू दिस. फॉलिंग बिहाइंड अगर G20, द चार्ट्स आर बेस्ड ऑन डेटा कलेक्टेड फ्रॉम द वर्ल्ड बैंक, ओपन डेटा. ऑफ कोर्स हमें पता है कि इंडिया की क्या पोजीशन है, लाइक GDP पर कैपिटा आप देख सकते हो. HDI की बात करें तो ऑफ कोर्स हम डेवलप्ड कंट्री कंपैरिजन में आई मीन हमारी पोजीशन जो है इतनी अच्छी नहीं है. So but we are improving. Climate phenomena and food security. How does the climate phenomena like El Nino, INSO and all this could impact or affect or endanger the food security in India? And that is important article. Fine. So first of all, there has been a serious disruptive weather and climate phenomena in India this year. Fine. We have experienced such kind of disruptive climate phenomena, especially in the case of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh as well. Fine. Could have seen it. So what exactly is, let us start with El Nino itself. So an El Nino phase, El Nino की बात हम काफी टाइम से कर रहे हैं. It's a weather phenomena actually which impacts the southwest monsoon in India. Fine. And it of course results in so of course it somewhat impacts negatively to the Indian monsoon and therefore resultant yield or production of course of agriculture sector. So climate-linked warming is likely to weaken winter precipitation from the western disturbances. So जो सर्दियों में जो ठंड के मौसम में विंटर्स में हम जो बारिश देखते हैं in India, especially from the western disturbance due to western disturbances fine from Mediterranean Sea, therefore somewhat हो सकता है कि intense ना हो इतनी, ठीक है, and shift it to more intense rain events. कि वार्मिंग जो है वो लाइकली टू वीकन, कि वार्मिंग ऑफ कोर्स कम हो सकती है ड्यू टू वेस्टर्न डिस्टर्बेंस, देखने को मिलता है यही कि ठंड बढ़ सकती है, बट समवॉट जो मॉनसून जो रेन है वो रेनिंग जो है सीजन वो और इंटेंस हो सकती है, तो दैट्स अ गुड थिंग. बट समवॉट दिस इज नेगेटिव इन द सेंस दैट ऑलरेडी वी आर फेसिंग लॉट्स ऑफ इशू विद द heavy rainfall and all that we are experiencing in Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand and all the hilly tracts. So therefore somewhat this could be further if this happens later into the summer, its consequences will be of greater concern. Moreover, then came evidence that an El Nino phase of the quasi-periodic El Nino southern oscillation. Now, abhi ye kya hai? It's again a weather phenomena in the eastern and central tropical Pacific Ocean was intensifying and likely to affect the southwest monsoon. So not all El Nino events have adverse effects on the southwest monsoon because the latter is driven by many ocean atmosphere land processes. But the relationship between the two entities has been changing over time. When an El Nino affects the southwest monsoon, another ocean atmosphere phenomena called Indian Ocean Dipole, that is the positive phase of this IOD, could balance out the consequences. कि अगर El Nino नेगेटिवली इम्पैक्ट करता है इंडियन मानसून को, साउथ वेस्ट मानसून को, बट पॉजिटिव अगर IOD है तो कहीं ना कहीं ये इम्पैक्ट जो है वो इफेक्ट जो है न्यूट्रलाइज हो जाता है, ठीक है, कि इतनी इंटेंस हमें नेगेटिव कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस देखने को नहीं मिलती है. फॉर एग्जांपल, डायनेमिक रिग्रेशन मॉडल्स हैव सजेस्टेड that 65% of the inter-annual variability of the southwest monsoon over many decades can be attributed to the combined effects of INSO and IOD. So ये all Indian Ocean dipole. So of course this is related to the Indian Ocean weather phenomena. So ये दोनों चीजें ज्योग्राफी में स्पेशली आपकी जो स्टैटिक पार्ट में सब पढ़ाया जाता है आपको. El Nino and food security. Now agriculture depends on two types of water: green water, which is rain fed, soil moisture tapped by food and cash crops, eventually transpiring into the atmosphere, transpiration, and blue water, which is the water in rivers, lakes, reservoirs, and groundwater. So of course, दो तरीके की water, green water, that is rainfall especially, which is rain-fed soil moisture tapped by food and all, and the other is of course the blue water, that is the waters available in the rivers, lakes, reservoirs, canals, and all, groundwater even. So the latter is the basis for irrigation in agriculture, apart from drinking and industrial use supply. So India में आप देखते हो कि ground water extraction जो है वो the time बहुत ज़्यादा देखने को मिल रही है, and of course we are rain fed, जो हमारी irrigation facilities हैं not more than 50% of the nets on area. So of course we are highly dependent on rainfall, this rainfall and all. So इस वजह से कहीं ना कहीं again ये हमारे लिए issue इस front पे भी देखने को मिल सकता है. The El Nino and other climate phenomena affect rain-fed agriculture in many ways, from delaying the start of rains and affecting sowing to hot temperature that may negatively influence plant growth and soil moisture. ठीक है, so इन forms में हमें impact देखने को मिल सकता है कि delay देखने को मिल सकता है rainfall में. अगर delay हो रही है तो of course वहाँ पे sowing season जो है वो कहीं ना कहीं प्रभावित होता है. So despite investment in dams, reservoirs, and irrigation system, around half of the cultivated area in India depends on green water, that is rain fed and not blue water. कि again almost 50%, half of 49% के around आपकी जो dependency है वो हमारी rainfall पे है अभी भी. Fine. So some 75% of this footprint is green water, demonstrating the importance of rain-fed agriculture to our food and nutrition security. कि जो भी food हम consume, our daily diet जो भी है in India में, उसमें कहीं ना कहीं 75% of this diet involves the use of rainwater, you can say. Somewhat this demonstrates the importance of rain-fed agriculture to our food and nutrition security, right? Even in irrigated areas, many dominant crops require green water for different purposes. For example, we have sugarcane, rice, जहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा चाहिए होता है पानी. For example, mentioned यहाँ पे खरीफ season. So rice paddy under irrigation uses green water to the tune of 35%. Many staple other crops like tur dal, soybean, groundwater, and maize also rely considerably on green water. So in 2015-16 El Nino year, soybean production in India declined by 28%. So you can see कि El Nino इफेक्ट हमें जो लास्ट 2015-16 में देखने को मिला था, उसकी वजह से कहीं ना कहीं सोयाबीन प्रोडक्शन जो है वो इफेक्ट उस पर देखने को मिली थी. ठीक है, बिकॉज ऑफ दिस El Nino impact. Excuse me. So as we have emerged from one of the warmest and driest August in many decades, one can of course August this year was the warmest one, driest one. Rainfall आपको ज़्यादा देखने को नहीं मिली. जनवरी जुलाई टू सितंबर का जो साउथ वेस्ट मानसून है वो रहता है टाइम पीरियड. So one can hope that IOD or other phenomena will help reduce the impact of El Nino on India's agriculture, farmers, food security, food inflation, and conflicts over water sharing between states. So we are of course now we are expecting that the positive Indian Ocean dipole somewhat would neutralize the negative impact of the El Nino, and therefore we'll see that these things, from food security to the farmers' welfare and agriculture to food inflation, and even conflicts over water sharing like the ones going on between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu are least. Fine. So El Nino and the northeast monsoon. First we talked about the El Nino and the southwest monsoon. Now the other thing is with the northeast monsoon. Fine. So at the end of the southwest monsoon, the blue water stock in our reservoirs and groundwater will partially determine the fate of the rabi crops sown in the winter, of course, and the overall water security. So contribution of green water from the northeast monsoon in southeast India and the western disturbances in the north will play significant roles as well. So all these factors, northeast monsoon in southeast India especially, and the western disturbance, these two things especially that we experience during the winters में जो बारिश होती है because of these two phenomena. So of course इस वजह से हमें रबी क्रॉप जो है, रबी क्रॉप्स, खरीफ क्रॉप्स, so रबी क्रॉप्स पे हमें positive और negative impact देखने को मिलेगा as these two phenomena actually or unfolds. So the rabi crops of 2024 are going to bank heavily on blue water, that is water that we have in the reservoirs, groundwater and all, or irrigation during the summer months. So these are the data. So तो यहाँ पे रीजन की भी स्पेसिफिक दी गई है। फॉर एग्जांपल सेंट्रल इंडियन हाईलैंड्स की बात की गई है, एनकम्पासिंग 36 डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स इन द स्टेट्स ऑफ मध्य प्रदेश, छत्तीसगढ़ एंड महाराष्ट्र, which are emerging as a climate change hotspots critical for our water, food and ecological security. Fine. This region mentioned experiences significant and perennial water stress. Perennial means throughout the year, driven largely by rabi irrigation with blue water. As a result, some 70 to 78% of the landscape experiences water stress for 4 or more months in a year in these cities, especially Nagpur enduring water stress for the longest duration. The persistent uncertainties have because of all this, uh, the amount of monsoon precipitation has been declining since 1950s, attributed by some climate scientists to the reduction in land sea thermal gradient due to warming of the seas. ठीक है, so over the time climate change की वजह से हमें सी जो है वो गर्म होती नजर आ रही है, ठीक है, जो टेम्परेचर है बढ़ता हुआ नजर आ रहा है, तो इसके वजह से भी एक कहीं ना कहीं जो लैंड सी की जो थर्मल ग्रेडियंट और प्रेशर जो है ऑफ कोर्स वहाँ पे हमें उसकी वजह से जो है रेनफॉल कम देखने को मिल रही है, ठीक है, इंट्रैक्शन ऑफ दिस टू फिनोमिना लैंड एंड सी. सो देयरफॉर हाइड्रोलॉजिकल साइकिल एंड जो वाटर साइकिल आप बात करते हो वो भी कहीं ना कहीं देखने को मिल रहा है कि इम्पैक्ट हो रही है. So global climate models and their regional equivalents have failed to simulate these observed trends in precipitation. So it is possible that as the warming continues, total rainfall in parts of India may increase, but the share of extreme rain events may go up. ठीक है, कि हो सकता है कि total rainfall in some parts of India may increase, but share of extreme rain events, जैसे हमें हिमाचल प्रदेश में अभी या करंटली जो ने देखा है वो क्या था, एक्सट्रीम रेन इवेंट्स में गो अप, की बहुत जल्दी बारिश हो रही है और बहुत ज्यादा अमाउंट में हो रही है इन रेस्ट्रिक्टेड प्लेसेस, ठीक है, उसकी वजह से हमें लार्ज स्केल डेवास्टेशन देखने को मिलती है. ठीक है, so how we respond now, what should be the solution? So in terms of agriculture and food security, there is now an emphasis on reducing dependence on water intensive crops. जो water intensive crops हैं, ठीक है, क्रॉप डाइवर्सिफिकेशन पे फोकस किया जाए. फॉर एग्जांपल मिलेट्स बीइंग द क्रॉप्स ऑफ चॉइस, क्योंकि मिलेट जो है वो रेनफॉल या जो वाटर रिक्वायरमेंट है वो इतनी ज़्यादा नहीं है. ठीक है, so shifting to less water intensive crops may reduce vulnerability of our food system to phenomena like El Nino. And one estimate suggests that more than 30% of the blue water can be saved with such shift in crops, with some gains in protein and micronutrients but a slight reduction in calories. ठीक है, सो ऑफ कोर्स कहीं ना कहीं सैक्रिफाइसेस हमें देखने को मिलेंगे कि कैलोरीज रिडक्शन हो सकती है, बट ऑफ कोर्स गेन हमें देखने को मिल सकता है प्रोटीन्स एंड माइक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट्स में. फॉर एग्जांपल मिलेट्स a good source of micronutrients and this. So however, water saved in this manner may not necessarily help recharge our depleted aquifers or restore ecological flow in our rivers. New demands for saved water quickly emerge unless appropriate policies are in place. तो वाटर सेव करने के लिए, ग्राउंड वाटर को बचाने के लिए हमें न्यू सेट ऑफ पॉलिसीज की रिक्वायरमेंट होगी. There are several adaptations and alternative crop strategies available now thanks to the work of our farmers and agricultural scientists. They include shifting to millets and alternative varieties of dominant cereals and advisories to farmers to switch to crops with shorter growing cycles. So these could be the solutions actually. Crop diversifications from the in water intensive crops to the crops which uses less of water. For example, millets. For example, policies के through हम diversify कर सकते हैं. The government both at the center and the states along with farmers benefit from forecast of phenomena like El Nino and their impact on the monsoon. Of course, अगर एडवांस में हमें पता लग जाए कि क्या इम्पैक्ट होने वाला है तो better planning and policy measures लिए जा सकते हैं. And improvements in short-term weather forecast and early warning system for both intense rain and dry spells. So of course, forecasting बहुत important है एडवांस में, and that should be the accurate one as well. Based on decades of experience, it is clear that alternative short-term and long-term management of our dams and reservoirs is required to reduce the risk of dam-based flood disasters and ecological damage. Dam-based flood भी देखने को मिलते हैं जब जैसे जब भी बारिश एक्सेस में हो जाती है तो ऑफ कोर्स उसकी जो मैक्सिमम जो कैपेसिटी है वो ओवरफ्लो होने लग जाता है डैम, तो आपको कहीं ना कहीं उस वाटर को फिर कहीं और रिलीज करना पड़ता है. अदरवाइज अल्टीमेटली वी एंड अप विद हैविंग dam-based floods. So how we respond as a society and in terms of governance to water and climate change crises, which link food, water and ecological security through diversifying our agro-food systems, a lower dependence on blue water, rejuvenating our rivers, and sustainable water sharing between humans and nature will go a great extent determine the well-being of 1.4 billion people. So all of these, I mean, this these two can be taken into account as a point of solutions or the suggestions. Fine. So very good article, you can see. Fine. Next one is how the fraternity in India is different from the ideas enshrined in the constitution. So liberty, equality, and fraternity, you know, these are three words mentioned in our constitution, especially preamble. And this has been taken, of course, from the French Revolution of 1789. Fine. So somewhat the idea of fraternity, as philosopher Angel Powell argues in his book 2090 book, Political Fraternity, Democracy Beyond Freedom and Democracy, should be mainly understanding the domain of the political. But what exactly, how this is different? So the origin of the concept first, that is a fraternity. So the idea of fraternity has been an elusive one. Why so? Since ancient times, in Plato's Lysis, the philosopher invokes the word philia, that is love for the strong desire to pursue wisdom. That is, love and friendship with others becomes more meaningful through the sharing of knowledge. Okay? The emphasis is on share, which gives us an early idea on the discourse of fraternity in ancient Greece. Focus kya tha? Sharing of knowledge, which results in the love and friendship among the people, according to in the Plato's times. In Aristotle, we see the emergence of the polis, that is a logical location of a man who remains first and foremost a political being, and hence is a part of the polis and not of the wild. Okay? Justice and friendship among citizens came to be the most enduring features of the polis. ठीक है? So यहाँ पे भी justice and friendship की बात की गई. Plato में हमने love and friendship की बात की, that is based on the sharing of knowledge. So this is where the birth of the idea of political fraternity took shape. So in the Middle Ages, fraternity flourished mostly through religion within the churning of Christian society in Europe, and the concept of fraternity then eventually found its entry into politics with the French Revolution of 1789 in the tri-page of liberté, égalité and fraternité. That is liberty, equality and fraternity in French. We call it pronounced like this. From the civic political friendship of ancient Greece to the medieval Christian society and then to its revolutionary dimensions, fraternity has always found a place in the ever-evolving world of action. Okay? So this is how actually we trace the origin of concept of fraternity from the times of Plato to Aristotle to in the middle times the Christian this society, or of course in the Europe, and then after that you see ultimately of course French Revolution of 1789. So friendship among equals. So this is a book actually in Community Ties. MC Williams in the Idea of Fraternity in America 1973 explains one sees an integral value system which is the foundation of the idea of fraternity. Fine. Fraternity जैसे आप बोलते हो सिंपल हिंदी में भाईचारा, कि कहीं ना कहीं आपसी जो relations हैं वो ठीक होने चाहिए, ठीक है, दो लोगों के बीच में. And it's not surprising that in the Western world, that is how the idea of fraternity grew. The privileging of the idea of community and the moral values associated with over the individual gradually gave way to religious morality and its associated way of life. So Western में हम देखते हैं कि privilege किसको दी गई है? Idea of community and moral values को over the individuals. This elementary dimension of fraternity is missing when we assess fraternal ties in India. Okay, so they are saying that this element is somewhat missing in the fraternal ties we assess in India. For in order to have fraternal bonding between individuals in India, they must have a shared past. And that shared past has to be an amicable one and cannot be drawn from ideological differences rooted in the vast social inequalities among different communities. Okay? So इस तरह से जो Western concept of fraternity है somewhat is different from the Indian concept of fraternity. Fine? बहुत ज़्यादा इसको पॉलिटिकल साइंस जिसके पास ऑप्शन है उसके लिए इंपॉर्टेंट हो सकता है, बट अदरवाइज जनरल में बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है. So one of the main ideas behind the introduction of a slew of affirmative actions, of which affirmative action of course reservation has survived, was to build a certain equality between extremely different social groups in terms of their access to social and economic goods. So on the formulation, liberty, equality and fraternity coexisting as a mutually indispensable preconditions to citizenship rights. Besides Ambedkar, of course, we also see John Rawls, of course, natural justice, stressing on the same principle in his theory of justice in 1971, wherein his difference principle works towards maintaining a certain equality in order to realize political fraternity. कुछ differences जरूरी है, इसलिए theory of justice में he talks about difference principle, that is important because that works towards maintaining a certain equality in order to realize political fraternity, affirmative action और reservation system की, ठीक है. So that idea was and still is to create a level playing field between varying social groups locked in structural hierarchies to begin to understand what it takes to really actualize fraternal ties. The limits to fraternity now. Certain preconditions are necessary in order to achieve what kind of political fraternity inculcated by the Constitution of India. At the very first, fraternity does not mean anything if it glosses over social inequalities and then invokes social solidarity. ठीक है. फ्रेटर्निटी का मतलब ये नहीं कि पहले ग्लॉस ओवर कर जाए सोशल इनइक्वालिटीज पे एंड देन यू आर इन्वोकिंग द सोशल सॉलिडारिटी. ठीक है, तो पहले इनइक्वालिटी की बात करते हैं एंड फिर सॉलिडारिटी की अगर बात करते हैं तो दैट्स नॉट द फ्रेटर्निटी. तो सच सॉलिडारिटी कम्स राइडिंग ऑन द हेट अगेंस्ट एन इमेजरी अदर and tend to maintain social status quo, which bolsters the already privileged at the cost of the continuous subjugation of the underprivileged. Secondly, the call of such fraternity is increasingly replaced with the rhetoric of belligerent nationalism, which castigates a homegrown religious minority as its arch enemy. तो यहाँ पे minority की बात कर रहे हैं, religious minority of course यहाँ पे थोड़ी धर्म के नाम पे कहीं ना कहीं secular वाला issue यहाँ पे उठाया गया है. Religious minorities have faced such social and political opprobrium countless times in the country, and finally, any source of fundamentalism jettisons possibility of fraternity. A fanatic can be anything but fraternal in the true sense. So all of these things conclude करने के लिए in India, caste and the idea of political fraternity given its social milieu cannot coexist. तो ये conclude किया इन्होंने कि इंडिया में कास्ट एंड द आइडिया ऑफ पॉलिटिकल फ्रेटर्निटी जो है बोथ कैन नॉट कोएग्जिस्ट एंड वन हैज टू गिव वे फॉर द अदर टू इमर्ज एंड टू फिगर आउट व्हिच वन सर्वाइव्स एंड व्हिच गोज इज द टास्क ऑफ पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ द फ्यूचर. रिटन बाय मोगलम भारती, टीचर्स एट बी आर अम्बेडकर यूनिवर्सिटी दिल्ली. ठीक है, तो चलो यहाँ से हमारे को फ्रेटर्निटी की कैसे है, बट कुछ पॉलिटिकल एंगल भी है इसमें, उसको नहीं कंसिडर करना. ठीक है, जो टेक्निकल इश्यूज हैं वो हम जरूर कंसिडर कर सकते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल ओरिजिन हमारे लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. हाउ the concept of fraternity emerged, originated from the times of Plato to the modern times of course French Revolution. So that is very important for us to understand. SC refers plea against sedition law to constitution bench. So constitution bench 5 या 5 से ज़्यादा जज बैठते हैं. And section 124A of the IPC, जो भारतीय न्याय संहिता जो इसमें चेंज लेने वाले हैं, भारतीय न्याय संहिता बिल जो कि रिप्लेस करेगा IPC को. तो ऑफ कोर्स इसको देखने के लिए somewhat सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने सुनवाई करने के लिए इस पे सेक्शन 124 ऑफ द आईपीसी दैट इज रिलेटेड टू सेडिशन लॉ, इसके लिए 3 जज बेंच पहले थी, तो 3 जज से बड़ी ही बेंच बनेगी अगर दोबारा से इसको सुनवाई करनी हो. तो ऑफ कोर्स somewhat 5 जजेस बेंच हमें देखने को मिलेगी इस पे, एंड ऑफ कोर्स 5 जजेस बेंच को हम कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. ओके, apart from this, let us have a quick look at the miscellaneous facts from the exam point of view. Okay, so farmers to approach SC against Supreme Court against Indo-US deal on poultry. ठीक है, so as India and United States decided to end disputes over import of poultry products and to reduce import tariff on apples, almonds, chickpeas and lentils, farmers and traders association have raised an alarm. ठीक है, कि कहीं ना कहीं इंडियन मार्केट जो फ्लड हो जाएगी इन चीज़ों से, इसलिए ये है they are planning to move to Supreme Court. आज़ादी है भाई, जा सकते हो. Okay, what else important? South Korea keen on joining Quad. Quad is a 4-member quadrilateral security bloc that is of course जहाँ पे हम इंडिया, जापान, यूएस एंड ऑस्ट्रेलिया है. तो ऑफकोर्स साउथ कोरिया, पहले भी हमने बात की थी कि रिपब्लिक ऑफ कोरिया में जो हैप्पीमैन जैकब साहब का जो आर्टिकल था ऑन इंटरनेशनल अफेयर्स, सो उसमें भी हमने मेंशन किया था कि रिपब्लिक ऑफ कोरिया जो है इज इंटरेस्टिंग, ट्राइंग एक्चुअली फ्रॉम द लास्ट मेनी टाइम ईयर्स टू ज्वाइन दिस क्वाड, एंड होपफुली इट विल ज्वाइन द क्वाड नेक्स्ट ईयर व्हेन इट विल बी कॉल्ड एज क्वाड प्लस. एंड G7 स्टेप G20 बाय अग्रीइंग टू डिक्लेरेशन. जर्मनी एनवॉय ने ये कहा है. ठीक है, सेंटर ने स्टार्ट करना है न्यू हेल्थ स्कीम दैट इज कॉल्ड आयुष्मान भव. आयुष्मान भारत स्कीम के बाद आयुष्मान भव हेल्थ स्कीम टुडे, फाइन, with the Ayushman Bhava campaign which will be inaugurated by the president ठीक है. Of course, initiated by the health ministry क्योंकि health related है. Is aimed at providing a comprehensive nationwide healthcare initiative to saturate coverage of health coverage care services reaching every village and town. The ministry will also launch Ayushman Aapke Dwar 3.0 program, which will allow eligible beneficiaries enrolled under the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana scheme to download their health card on their own. Okay? And ये कल जो हमने डिस्कस किया था कि एक symposium होने वाला है. That is, she has inaugurated, President of India has inaugurated, President of Bharat in fact inaugurated a global seminar organized here by the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture and the Food Agriculture Organizations on Farmers' Rights. So एक symposium चल रहा है, that is on international seminar organized here by the two bodies, the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture, and the second is of course by FAO, फूड एग्रीकल्चर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. पहले ही मैंने कहा था कि जहाँ भी फूड एग्रीकल्चर रिलेटेड बात हो वहाँ पे FAO का होना कहीं ना कहीं मान सकते हो कि 99% ऑफ द टाइम्स FAO वुड बी देयर. तो क्या कहा है प्रेसिडेंट साहिबा ने? फार्मर्स आर अन्नदाताज, प्रोटेक्ट देयर राइट्स एंड फ्यूचर, सेज प्रेसिडेंट. ऑफ कोर्स दे आर अन्नदाताज. ओके, अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस जो हमारे नेशनल दिस MORTH, दैट इज मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ हाईवे रोडवेज एंड ऑफ कोर्स जो हमारे मिनिस्टर हैं गडकरी साहब, ही सेज से बाय टू डीजल गडकरी वॉन्ट्स ऑटो फॉर्म्स ऑफ हायर टैक्सेस. ठीक है कि जो डीजल की गाड़ी है उनको बंद करो, पेट्रोल वर्जन ही सिर्फ प्रोड्यूस करो, उनकी प्रोडक्शन हो. प्लस वी आर फोकसिंग ऑन शिफ्ट टुवर्ड्स ऑफ कोर्स EVs एंड टुवर्ड्स हाइड्रोजन एंड ऑल व्हीकल्स हाइब्रिड नाउ मोर. So July industrial output rises by 5.7%. This is a 5-month high gain. This is a good thing. Fine. Apart from this, Russian companies said to cease offering discounts on fertilizer supplies to India. ठीक है, so ऐसा सुनने को मिला है, बट देखो अल्टीमेटली क्या होता है. इंडिया अर्जेस श्रीलंकन गवर्नमेंट टू कीप इट्स प्रॉमिस ऑन द तमिल इशू. वहाँ पे जो हमने बात की थी आर्टिकल एक 54th सेशन जो चल रहा है इनका, कि ऑफ कोर्स वहाँ पे अमेंडमेंट ले आओ एंड अमेंडमेंट लाके जो प्रोविंसेस हैं वो उनको स्पेशल राइट दिए जाएं. ठीक है, किम जोंग उन पहुँच चुके हैं पुतिन जी से मिलने. ओके, व्हाट एल्स इम्पॉर्टेंट? Now we have landed on sports page. So कल इंडिया ने फिर जीत दर्ज की है against श्रीलंका. That's not, I mean, that important. So let us have quick, before we stop here, let us have a quick look at the today's question based on today's analysis. So first is, consider the following statement regarding Nipah virus. It is a zoonotic virus. And second statement, currently there are no vaccines for this virus. Easier question. You need to choose the correct option, correct answer. The second is El Nino and other climate phenomena endangers the food security. You need to comment for a 15-mark question in 250 words. So that's it from my side. If you have any query, anything, you can put the same in the comment section. Until then, take care, keep revising, and stay tuned for tomorrow's Hindu analysis. Thank you.